I have already melted copper a few times, as you can see from this variety of previous melts. So why do I want to melt copper again, but this time in front of the camera? Well, for one thing, it's kind of fun. But today I want to focus, pun intended, on current and frequency changes with this insulated graphite crucible. I've seen a few copper melting videos already, but it seems to take a long time to get the copper melted, so I thought I'd give it a try myself with this pretty full crucible weighing something over 250 grams of copper itself, scrap copper. And while doing so, try to gather some additional data about the way this particular 2500 watt heater deals with graphite and copper. Okay, here we go to melt some copper. Just turned the current on, 6 amps idle, 16.1 Celsius on the water cooler, 37.8 frequency, and we will start the timer and put the material into the crucible. Current 10, 20, 25, 30, 32, 34, 37 amps, 42.4 kilohertz, 23 seconds in, 16.9 degrees Celsius on the water. Okay, we've got an ingot mold over here, copper samples over there that we looked at a little bit earlier. And we're going to cover the crucible. Maybe with a couple of layers here. And the idea is here we're going to look at the degree of heating that's going on every minute or so to see when we can see a glow and watch what's happened here. Again, 37 amps, 42.758 kilohertz, 18.3 on the water. The heat's been on for a minute and a half, a little bit of smoke coming out of there. The copper is turning red and orange and green and what have you. We're going to preheat the crucible here with the propane torch. And the reason for that is so that there can't be any moisture in the crucible or in the ingot mold when we pour the copper. And this is my smoked ingot. It's important to do that. But when you go to preheat it, you don't want to have your flame hit the inside of the ingot mold, because it'll burn off the carbon. Okay, we're at 3.5 minutes. Things are starting to glow in there. The crucible is a medium orange to my eye. Most of the copper is a low red color, maybe orange in the bottom. 3 minutes, 49 seconds right there. So we'll take a half a minute here and preheat the crucible. All we have to do, or the ingot mold, all we have to do is get the whole thing above the boiling temperature of water. So that we don't have any evaporation occur. We pour that 2,000-degree copper into the mold, and there isn't any water at all. It'll immediately turn to steam and can blow copper all over the place. And as they say, don't ask me how I know. almost 5 minutes. When it gets to 5 minutes, we'll go ahead and take another set of readings. .68, 22.2 on the water, 38 amps on the current. That's gross current now, so you have to subtract 6. So that'd be about 42 amps times 48 volts is the power going into the crucible. It's all glowing pretty bright orange in there. No melting yet as far as I can see. I've got a Kevlar glove here that I'll be using when we get ready to pour on my right hand, just so I've got some little bit better control if I need it. Put another 10-15 seconds into my preheating of the crucible here, or the ingot mold. Sorry about that. I flamed this with oxyacetylene torch. It seems like I can't get oxypropane or propane to smoke anything like that. And of course the reason we're smoking it is to get that layer of carbon all over the crucible, the ingot mold, so that the hot copper doesn't solder itself to the iron. 6 minutes and 40 seconds, 24.6 Celsius on the water. Current has dropped back to 31 amps. I bet you something melted in there. Sure enough, it did, and it's actually bubbling there. I suppose you can't see it. The crucible ended up, it looked full, but it's only about 1/3 full. The copper is melted and bubbling at 7 minutes. Now when I go, current is 31, frequency 42.238, water temperature 25.6, MOSFETs, and the bottom of the board just 4 or 5 degrees over ambient. Front capacitor 10-15 degrees over Fahrenheit over ambient. I don't know what else there is to say, but I noticed in the past that the current does drop right as the copper scrap melts. I think it might be because of the height of the scrap in there are these, individual conductors that give us a higher current flow. Anyway, we're in there 8 minutes now. I want things to be 100 or 200 degrees Fahrenheit over the melting point so the copper doesn't freeze before I get it poured into the mold. So now I'm going to pour. I'm leaving the power on right now. So the water cooling stays on and the fans and so on. Here's the pour. And there we have the remains. Notice that the graphite crucible stays nice and hot yet, but the outer ceramic shell doesn't have any signs of glowing at all. It just shows you how effective that baby is. Now I'll turn the power off. I guess I don't even need to have the crucible in there. I've got a hole in this board underneath so I can push up onto a piece of fire brick and then get my crucible out easy, by the way. Okay, we got to 27.8. Power's off. 9 minutes into the whole test. And we had, I guess I'd call that a pretty successful melt. I'm going to move the crucible out of the way so I don't break it or hurt anything else. And it seems that the copper has solidified. Now comes kind of the moment of truth, whether it'll come out of there without a lot of help or not. Maybe it won't today. We'll let it cool some more because it's going to shrink. Water temperature 26 Celsius. Just the tiniest bit warm to the touch. Of course, the incoming coil is, which should be this one, is just a degree or two different from that one. Let's see if I can't become a little more persuasive here. I'm getting that copper out. Well, off camera, I finally was able to chisel my piece of copper out of there. If you remember, I talked earlier about the importance of smoking, and I don't know if it'll help, but I can see there are two spots right here about 1/4 of an inch around. Two spots here about 1/4 of an inch around that are copper colored, so that means the copper did manage to solder itself. There are mold releases. I better buy some.